Hey golfers, the absolute quickest way for you to lower your scores is from that awkward 30 to 80 yard range. Think about it. You're out on the golf course, you just pumped your driver on a par 4, or you're on a par 5, you hit a great second shot, you've got an opportunity for birdie, and then what do? You end up like this guy. Oh, that is the worst. You chunk it or you blade it straight over the green and you just blew your opportunity. But don't worry, I've got 3 simple ways to help you dial in your wedges today once and for all. And before we do that, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel because we come out with videos like this every single week to help you with your game. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about that awkward range, 30 to 80 yards, you're inside 100. We don't have a full swing for those areas. So how do we combat that? And I will probably say that the number one thing that I see most players do is decelerate on those shots. And I've probably heard that multiple times from multiple tour players and instructors, guaranteed. Now you're up there, you're close to the green, and how do you feel? You feel nervous, you feel tense. So when you feel nervous and tense, that's when you tend to say, oh, please slow down, don't go over the green. And you end up hanging backwards on the club, lifting the leading edge and blading that ball straight to the other side. Sound familiar? Okay, so let's dial this in a little bit. Now, Russell Henley, one of the best tour players in this area for scoring and most accurate, he uses a system that's very similar to clock system is what it is, but we're gonna dial this in a little bit better for you to make sure you really understand. Now, wedges are all going to have about 3 to even 4 different swing lengths with each one of them. So what I mean by that is I rarely want to see a player take a full 60-degree wedge from inside that area. That is way too much going on. You're going to add a lot of loft sometimes and sometimes not enough. So when you have different launch angles, you have different distances and you cannot really control that to your best ability. What I want you to more think about is when you take this club back, where are your hands located in this position? Where are they in your backswing? Do you have a system for it or not? What I mean by that is our system is going to be similar to Russell's in that when you take your hands back, you want to feel like your first position out of the 3 or 4 is at about 9 o'clock. And we're talking about our hands. We're not talking about our club head. Okay, so our hands are about 9 o'clock. Now, if you go up a little bit, we found just with flat TrackMan technology and LaunchMart technology that it's not really a 10-yard difference. The more you take it back, the farther you take it back, it's more of a 5-yard difference. So for instance, let's say that our 9 o'clock position, I've got a 54 in my hands. Let's say at my 9 o'clock position right here, I'm going to hit this club about 60 yards. Okay, then at 9:30, a little bit farther, I'm going to hit about 65 yards, right? 10 o'clock, 70, and then 10:30, about 75 yards. Now that's going to be my system for those clubs. It really helps you dial it in and it really calibrates your eyes to those different distances depending on how far you take it back. This is more of a feel thing and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on as well. So really feel like that this clock drill is a little more specific, but we're thinking about it in terms of 5-yard increments, not 10. Now, if you want to go further, that's when you start changing clubs. So take your hands back to 9, take them up to 9:30, 10, 10:30, and then you're going to really start noticing those distances starting to get dialed in a lot more specific. It's not a guess anymore. Moving on. Another thing that I feel like is pretty much essential to wedge control and flight is choking down on the club a little bit and having just a little less hinge in your wrists. Here's what I mean by that. In the very beginning, I was kind of talking about how a lot of people they'll thin it and they'll chunk it, definitely. Well, when you choke down on the club, I just found that just having just a little shorter takes away that chunk factor, allows you to have a little shallower, not as steep of an angle of attack, a little shallower, and allows you to have a little better contact through the shot, more consistent, and a little better launch. Now, when we take it with a regular grip, you're gonna have a lot of people really focus on hitting down on that club more. That angle of attack really starts getting steep, and you can really lay the grass over the ball that way. Now, paired with that, I mentioned not having a lot of wrist hinge. I want to keep it a little bit straighter, not as much hinge in these positions. The more hinge you have, essentially the bigger swing, and the more that club can get flipped at the bottom. And as I mentioned earlier, adding loft or de-lofting some of those areas, just not having consistent flight. And that's what we're looking for. We want consistent flight. Less is more. And you're definitely going to find that if you start clubbing up on clubs, you know, you start going to, 54, 48, things like that, you don't need as big of a swing. You're going to have a little less hinge in your wrists, not as big of a swing, not as much is going to go on, and you're going to get a lot more consistent. Keep it simple. We tend to overthink these areas way too much. We don't have to. Let's keep it simple, and let's keep a system with it. So you've gone to 90 degrees, let's say. We've gotten a little less hinge. We've choked down on it, and that allows us to stay more in control. We are not decelerating, we're accelerating. Now, along with that, I mentioned not decelerating, meaning that we're not going to slow down on the downswing. We don't want to have a quick takeaway and then slow down this way. If anything, we want to accelerate through the ball or just stay consistent with your tempo. Let's stay consistent. We don't want to change too much, but if you're going to do anything, yes, accelerate towards your target. That's going to serve you a lot better than ever slowing down. Now, lastly, third, I want to mention as simple as yelling yardages out loud. What do I mean by that? Well, obviously not everybody has TrackMan in those type of facilities or opportunities, but if you have any kind of those little launch monitors, like Rapsodo has one that's out that's great. Any of those type of little launch monitors are going to be definitely serve you if you're a serious golfer, and I highly recommend you get one. You know, you can get them for pretty cheap nowadays, and you can take them right to the range. But specifically what I love these for is inside that 80-yard area. Now, what I mentioned a second ago is I want you to swing at one of those positions at 9, 9:30, 10, or 10:30, and I want you to try and call out how far you just hit that shot the second you hit it. So you hit it and you say 65, or you hit it and you say 70. Then I want you to see how far that ball actually went. You're doing a double whammy. You're combining technique with feel. Feel is everything. All right. We're not going to overthink too much out on the golf course. I don't want you to be in your head on that. We want to focus directly at our targets and get used to calling out our yardages as we do it. That'll calibrate your eyes, it'll calibrate your feel and your swing. There's most PGA Tour players actually within that range can easily get within a yard or two. They do it pretty often.
$92.
Ooh, 88.2.
88.2.
That was my 90-yard swing.
It's such a good practice, and I really highly recommend doing it. Now, if you don't have a rangefinder, or don't have the opportunity, launch monitor, you don't have the opportunity. A lot of you golfers do have rangefinders, though. Let's focus on that. Use a rangefinder. At least have an estimate that way. I realize that you're not a PGA Tour player, but let's at least get dialed in within a couple of yards. If you're on a range and you've got a rangefinder, handheld one, a Bushnell or anything like that, you can try calling out your yardages. You're going to know exactly how far that pin is because you shot it with your rangefinder, and then just estimate how many yards short or long you might have been. You can get pretty accurate that way. It's just practicing with a little bit of purpose, a little bit of intention, and you'll be amazed on how quickly that will start to compound to lower your scores. Okay, so we just covered 3 things. First, we covered our 9 o'clock clock system, 9:30, 10, and 10:30. Then we covered choking down on your wedges, having less wrist hinge, so a little straighter back this way, and probably clubbing up a little bit, keeping that club under control. Not too many factors involved. The bigger the swing, the more things can go wrong. And then lastly, we've got those feels down. We want to pair that with calling out our shot, trying to say how far that ball is going to go. We combine all three of those drills, you will be the master within that awkward 30 to 80 yard range, and finally start lowering your scores like you want to do. So if you like that video, be sure to like and subscribe to Team KSG, and we will see you next week for another video. Thanks for watching.